Hey everybody, it's me Andy, and I'm here with the first look at the first deck that I'm going to be playing on the first episode of Battle of the Brews. Let's get into it. Okay, well, it was a lot of thinking and a lot of considering about what to play in the first episode of Battle of the Brews. We want to have a good game. We want to have a nice show for all the people who supported us and all the people who made it possible to make the show work. So it should be no surprise, I think, to people that I've decided to go with Riku of Two Reflections. Now, of course, Riku, it's a teamer deck. Obviously, Riku allows us to copy instants and sorcery spells. He also lets us copy creatures as they come into play, although we're not really going to worry about that side of things. Because as you may know, if you're a listener, if you're a fan of Commander's Brew, if you've been around for a little while, you'll know that for me, my Riku deck is actually an epic experiment. That is correct. Epic experiment. X, blue, red. Exile the top X cards of your library for each instant and sorcery card with converted mana cost X or less. Among them, you may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Then put all cards exiled this way that weren't cast into your graveyard. So that's important to note, because that will come up, actually, that little graveyard thing. But really, it's all about huge epic experiments, casting a million spells, having some big impact on the game. And so if you're familiar with this deck, if you're familiar with the episode of Commander's Brew we did this one on, this is not the same exact deck. This is not a budget version. What are we going to do? What's this deck look like? Well, I'll give you a bit of a peek here. We got to get Epic Experiment. Is the most important card in the whole deck. Mystical Tutor, which goes and grabs it. We've also got Muddle the Mixture. It's a counter spell, counter target instant or sorcery spell, or it transmutes for 1 and a blue for a 2-mana spell, which of course is what Epic Experiment is. So let's talk about the mana base here real quick. It's all basics except for maybe 2 cards, I think. The reason for that is we have a lot of cards in this deck that go and get us basics, put basics on the battlefield. Basically, we want to ramp hard. We want to thin that deck out as much as possible. So in lieu of a lot of lands, because this deck is actually running a lot less lands than you might think, considering it wants to ramp so hard, we run a lot of cards like Lay of the Land, which is simply 1 green for a sorcery that says search your library for basic land, reveal it, put in your hand, shuffle your library. That effect we have a lot. So if we're ramping and we have let's say we get our Epic Experiment, what do we do in this sort of like mid-game? Deep Analysis is an interesting one. This is one that survived from the budget list that I actually like a lot. I'm not usually a fan of these kind of one-off draw spells, but because it has flashback, this makes it a lot better. We're going to need to protect Epic Experiment, so yeah, we've got more counter spells. We've got Negate in there. This is a new card I've put in the deck. It's called Primal Amulet. It's a 4-mana artifact, and I don't run very many artifacts. I don't run very many non-instant and sorcery spells. But this one makes instant and sorcery spells that you cast cheaper, of course. And when we cast them, we put charge counters on this thing, and then if there are 4 or more on it, we transform it into Primal Wellspring, which is, I think, is going to be worth having this artifact in here. So this kind of is a bit of a ramp, and like a ramp spell, in that when we cast enough things, when we cast our ramp spells, we're going to be able to transform this into a land, which is kind of like ramping again. And this, of course, is an amazing land because it adds 1 mana of any mana to our mana pool. And when it's spent to cast an instant or sorcery, we copy it. And copying Epic Experiment, if you haven't done it, is something that feels real good. And Archaeomancer, one of the few creatures we have in the deck. I just think it's worth having something that helps recur your spells. And I like Archaeo. We have a couple instant sorceries that do that, of course, and I like that effect so much that I am willing to throw it on a creature. One of the few creatures. Now, so when we get our big Epic Experiment, what are we hoping to hit? Well, Temporal Mastery can actually be really helpful even if you get the miracle cost off. You don't necessarily need to hit this with Epic Experiment for it to be good. So we like that one a lot. Just another one, Beacon of Tomorrows. Basically the same thing, just takes an extra turn. So you shuffle this one in to your library, which is great because if you do another Epic Experiment, you might be able to hit it again. And then we have Expropriate. So you can steal a bunch of stuff or take extra turns. Everyone knows that you should never let them have extra turns. So just always pick steal stuff. Another couple things. We got a Blatant Thievery here, which again just lets us steal things for each opponent, and Insurrection, which just, if we're playing against creature spells, can just win us the game on the spot. Speaking of winning the game on the spot, Storm. This deck runs a lot of Storm stuff. Hunting Pack is something that can get us if you gotta stack your spells properly. But Storm with Epic Experiment works because it casts all those copies, and you'll be able to get a bunch of 4/4 green beasts, and hopefully you'll be able to do that for free. The Epic Experiment will cast these, of course. Temporal Fissure is an interesting one because it's a Storm spell that just bounces everything, and it's permanence. Usually, again, sorry about the focus. There you go. Usually, Temporal Fissure is enough to bounce all the stuff they're doing, plus a bunch of their lands. You can, if you can get both of these Storm spells off in the same time, you make a bunch of stuff, you bounce all one player's lands and everything, and then you kill the other guy with your beasts. If you want them to get into play and to get them moving fast, make them angry. Get Anger. So the way this works is this is a creature. Again, one of the few, we're not running a lot of creatures here. So there it is, Anger. So the way this guy works is he's a 4-mana 2/2 with haste, and as long as he's in your graveyard and you control a mountain, creatures you control have haste. So the way it works is the Epic Experiment will try and cast this guy. I can't because it's a creature, and it just bins it right away. So you cast all your stuff, then this will go in the graveyard, and any of the tokens you made from, say, Hunting Pack, or say, I don't know, Metallurgic Summonings. So yeah, anyways, you make a bunch of tokens, and then Anger just lets them all attack. And then the other main win conditions in the deck, this is a card called Sphinx Bone Wand, and this is from the Izzet and Golgari dual deck. So this is a Japanese one that I bought. Basically, what this does is every time you cast an instant or sorcery, you put a counter on this guy, and it deals damage to target creature or player equal to the number of counters it has. So it's kind of like an ongoing Storm thing. At first, when you cast, you get 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5. Deadly spell. You get if you cast Epic Experiment and you have that on the board, your opponents are probably dead. Very similar card, Ether Flux Reservoir. Same thing, you gain a bunch of life off the spells you've cast, and then you can pay 50 life and just basically kill someone. And finally, Rude Awakening. It's a cool Entwine spell. Choose one. It's a 4 and a green. Choose one, tap all lands you control until end of turn. Lands you control become 2/2 creatures that are still lands. I forgot to say or. You can do either or, and then you entwine them for 2 and a green. So I look forward to playing this in the first episode of Battle of the Brews. Thanks everyone for watching. Keep supporting the Kickstarter. Keep sharing it. Let anyone know if you think they might be interested in watching the show, if they want to support and get on in on the ground floor, get some of these great rewards. Yeah, awesome. Thanks for checking it out. Now we'll see Sean's deck.
Okay, everybody, here's a quick sneak peek at Sean's deck for Battle of the Brews. This will be an early deck, either the first or the second episode, not sure which yet, but I'm going to run a Naya deck featuring Samut, Voice of Dissent. Even though, oh, there she is. Focus, Flash, Double Strike, Vigilance, Haste. I'll explain all that in the deck tech. I'm also going to explain what this deck is going to be all about and what to look for. Okay, everyone, here's what I'm planning. I'm going to run a deck with Samut. That means I've got Naya colors, red and green. Samut has Flash, Double Strike, Vigilance, Haste. Other creatures you control have Haste. Aha, and I get to untap other creatures, but I don't care about that. I won't be doing that. Here's what I want to be doing a ton of. Tokens. Going wide with Mog War Marshal. When Mog Marshal comes in, brings in a goblin. If you pay the echo cost or not, and it disappears, you're going to get another goblin to play. The echo cost business doesn't even matter. When it leaves, you get another goblin. So I'm not going to pay it. I'm going to get another one. Got Emrakul's Hatcher also. Got a bunch of tokens Emrakul's Hatch is going to bring with these Eldrazi spawn, they make mana. Who else makes mana? Farhaven Elf. Farhaven Elf brings in a land. How about a Plains? Got that Plains going? How about Emeria Shepherd to not only get that Plains, but then to bring back something from the graveyard? So everything that's happening here is bringing in a ton of permanents with them. Not to mention I got Omnath, Locus of Mana, making them elemental tokens. I got Panharmonicon, who can just double all this to make everything happen more than once. And all of that is so that I can flood the battlefield with permanents, like just tons of them. So that I can drop a Great Aurora, shuffle them all in, draw those cards, play those lands. Or a Warp World, and just shuffle them all in, play those lands. Is that too chaotic? Is that too crazy? I don't know. But if I do warp the world, I'm going to get everything to come out and a ton of tokens. I'm going to play that Foundry Champion. Hopefully that comes out too. When it enters the battlefield, it deals damage to target creature or player equal to the number of creatures you control, which is going to be like 20 of them. And if that wasn't enough, I got a Cryptolith, right, to get extra mana so I can do all of this stuff at once. Float a ton of mana, cast a Warp World, make all that happen. And I got tons of token brews. I'm going to be making spirits in there. I'm going to make human clerics. I'm going to be making more goblins, more spirits. I got some servos coming at you, a couple of birds. I'm going to do some mirrors with that mirror battle sphere. I got beasts. I got worms. Tons of tokens. All of them will get haste if I can cast Samut after that, and then just blast at somebody. So, Battle of the Brews, early episode will feature this deck. And if I don't get to Warp World or Great Aurora, I'm probably going to have to bring it back sometime. I want to see that happen. I'm obsessed with Warp World. So there you have it. That's a deck I'm going to be running early on in Battle of the Brews. Watch for it.
If you want to contact us, I'm at Sean Tabaris.
And I'm at Andy Holbone.
Send us an email at commandersbrew@gmail.com.
You can find out when we go live on Twitch if you follow us at twitch.tv.
And if you care to support us on Patreon, check us out at patreon.com.
And you can find our deck list on tappedout.net.
And if we forgot anything, commandersbrew.com.